Okay, welcome to day 83 of trying to become a SOC analyst on LetsDefend. I've got nothing but medium and lows. There was a high severity alert that popped up today, so I've already assigned that to myself, which is SOC 111 traffic to malware domain. So if we have a look at that, it's device action has been blocked. We've got a URL casinos-hub.com. It was from Endpoint Bella, or username Bella, sorry. The endpoint was BellaPRD. Okay, so it has been blocked. So let's see what we can find out about this one. The fact that the action's been blocked means we're probably looking more for what initially spawned it on the endpoint. So we could, well, let's actually see what it is first. It's obviously been marked as malicious. We can go to our threat intel, and while that's loading, we can load it up in VirusTotal. So it has been flagged as a malicious URL from 10 vendors. If we look at the community notes, emoji malware has been flagged. Okay, so we know it's emoji. We can check our threat intel. No. I'll just narrow it down to just the domain. Normally the fact that the alert has spawned that it's a malicious URL would mean that we'd have it in our database. But no, I'm not seeing it. We could try the IP. We've already got confirmation on VirusTotal that it's malicious, but yeah, no, I'm not seeing it in the local threat database. So if we go to the logs, just confirmation of the block. So yeah, there's no other connections that have gone through. And if we look at the source address, so this is all the traffic coming out of the endpoint, or we might have to change that search. It's pulling everything with 199 as well, so we'll put source address. Okay, we're still getting a lot of results, but they're not actually matching our date range. May 2023, our alert was Jan 21. Just check the ordering. I mean, it looks like it's following the correct date orders. So we don't have any logs for that period. But strangely, we're not even seeing that blocked a log either. Could try and narrow down the date. 21 and January. I mean, let's zero right in on the date, just those 2 days only. Okay, and so only seeing one log from that day, which is the device blocked. So it's going to come down to what's happening on the endpoint. So let's go to endpoint security. BellaPRD. So the first thing that stands out is that there's a PowerShell being ran. Unfortunately, we don't have the command listed. Yeah, okay, so that PowerShell is a worry. If we go to network connections, there's some active connections to this 140 IP. Let's see if that's getting flagged as malicious. and it is. It's been labeled GitHub. GitHU. Okay, let's see if we can find out any more. Okay. Well, I mean, it's definitely been flagged. A lot of community notes. So it looks like it is just one of the GitHub URLs. So that means it could just be any GitHub repo that someone's posted, and it's grabbing, like, that's why it's coming up in 387 different variations of different malware. Like this one's grabbing Rusty Steel, or this one's grabbing Wall Stealer. So it looks like it's being used as a stage to be able to pull down malware. Alright, so in that context, we see a PowerShell process being ran on the endpoint, which was there, and then we see the network connection. We're not seeing the log for that in the HTTP logs. Anything in the logs. Sorry, it was here. We're only seeing that one pull. We could try and change the date to make it a little bit broader, but it still doesn't look like we're getting anything. So we'll go back to the endpoint. I mistakenly clicked off that. We'll grab the IP again. It was BellaPRD. BellaPRD. So putting it all together, we saw malicious. Where is it? A malicious URL here. The casino hub had been attempted to get communicated with from the endpoint, and we saw that it was blocked. So we were looking for something on the endpoint that is causing it to reach out to that address, and on the endpoint we can see a PowerShell process running with a network connection with the same date to an IP that's been flagged as a malicious IP used to stage malware, so like a C2 address to malware. In the terminal history, we're not seeing the PowerShell script or anything, and in the browser history, we're seeing some GitHub browsing, but they don't match up with our dates. So we're going to contain the machine, because my working premise is that this PowerShell process is spawning that attempt to grab the next stage of malware here. So definitely need to investigate the endpoint. So let's start a playbook. Okay, so we've analyzed the URL as malicious. Has anyone accessed the IP or domain? So it was blocked. So this is where, is the request blocked? Is there any access? We're going to go with not accessed. No, but we want to contain the machine, so I don't... I know this is going to dock us 5 points, but I feel like we need to press access to get this containment, because the endpoint needs to be investigated. So I can't find a log that confirms it was accessed, because the log does show blocked. But I want this containment option, so we will contain it. I think that's going to cost me points, but I do think that someone needs to investigate this PowerShell process. And in the logs, we're not seeing any other reason for what might have spawned this. So actually there's one thing I have not checked which could explain it, is email Bella@LetsDefend. Okay, so there's no email there, so that could have been what caused the initial compromise, but no. So I feel like it does need to be investigated. So let's add some artifacts. So we've got our URL. And more importantly, I think we need to add in, because this is corresponding with our alert time window. And I think it's most likely going to be related to this PowerShell possibly. So we definitely should include this IP. And it was flagged as potentially malicious. And what other artifacts do we have? No, that's about all we have, so let's go next. I'm going to pause the video and write some notes. Okay, so I've written up some notes for this one. I do strongly believe that we're lacking either some endpoint logs or some logs in HTTP, because we are seeing a network connection dated the 30th of the 1st, 2021, but we're not seeing those logs appear in the log query, and on the endpoint we're seeing a PowerShell process, but normally in my experience with LetsDefend, you can see the command when you click onto the process, and we're not seeing that. And also in the terminal history, we're not seeing any PowerShell command. So let's go through what I wrote up. We've mapped it to the MITRE attack techniques, command and scripting interpreter, PowerShell, application layer protocol, web protocols, ingress tool transfer, and user execution malicious file. What? The alert SOC 111, traffic to malware, triggered after host BellaPRD attempted to connect to a known malicious domain, casino-hub. The connection was blocked by security controls. Endpoint review identified a PowerShell process running, suggesting potential scripted activity responsible for the outbound requests. When, we've got the timestamp. Where, host BellaPRD, user Bella attempted connection to casino-hub. Additional endpoint network activity shows communication with 140. GitHub infrastructure, which may indicate staging or payload hosting. Why? The alert was triggered due to an attempted connection to a known malicious domain. Although the connection was blocked and no additional proxy logs were observed, the presence of an active PowerShell process on the endpoint raises suspicion of scripted or malware-driven activity due to limited logging visibility and potential signs of compromise. The host was contained and escalated for further investigation. So I do think with the playbook, I had to select one of the incorrect answers about the domain being accessed, because it was actually blocked, but I wanted to get the containment option available so that we could contain the machine to then escalate it because of the logs that I just read out there. So let's log. Sometimes LetsDefend can be a little bit fussy about how many lines you put in, so I'll just cut out the MITRE mapping, and we'll try and log that like that. Okay, so that's gone through that time. Let's close the alert. So it was a true positive, and I might have to edit out the mapping again. So we'll trim that off, and that should allow us to close the alert. It seems to have an issue with line count. Okay, here we go. Yeah, so as I suspected, has anyone accessed the IP? In retrospect, I guess I could have just said the answer that I wanted, which was that no one had accessed it, and I could still contain the machine. I could still write in my notes that we're escalating it, because it's not like there's a button that then had an option to escalate. So okay, maybe I could have just wrote in my notes that we contained it. So I did know I was going to lose those 5 points, but overall we did get it was a true positive and that it was a malicious URL. I had suspected that might be the case, and maybe that's the lesson I've learned today, is with the containment you can still contain the endpoint. And yeah, I was a bit concerned that sometimes one of the judging playbooks is whether or not it had been contained. So yeah, alright, we live to fight another day. I'll see you on day 84.